Hey there, Stephanie Joy with All Things Social Security and the Law Practice of Joy Disability. Here's a short little segment from our recent live stream Q&A that we have every Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the YouTube channel, All Things Social Security. Enjoy, and if you have any questions, leave them down below in the comments, and I will be sure to get to them. Thanks so much. Bye-bye now.
Hey guys, how is everybody? Shiloh, I see you are here bright and early with 5 million questions. We'll see. We'll get through them, but we'll probably jump around because I don't want to make everyone else not be heard. Are you? Dimple's in the house. Dimple says yes, she can hear us. Okay, good. Guys, you know Shannon Justice of Justice Disability. Shannon's in Kentucky, right? And Shannon, do you see the postings part? The
comments, yeah, I see them.
Yeah. I mean, if you want to put your website in there, so if anyone wanted to reach out to you, feel free. You know, you could just type it right in there. It'll come up on the page. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, it'll let me.
Okay. Anyway, so Shannon's been here before a couple times. So we're gonna share your questions, and you can see maybe a couple different perspectives and stuff like that. All right, so let's go back up to the start. I'm going to start with, let's see, Jones. I don't know if we've met on here, but your name sounds familiar, Rayford. Do you have to wait 75 days before you send a hearing date out? You want to take that one, Shannon? Explain about the 75 days.
You don't wait a certain amount of time, but they will notify you 75 days before the date. I mean, you can get scheduled the week after if they've got one available and you're at the next on the list, but it'll be 75 days later before the hearing date.
Yeah. So like, let's say you apply for OHO and they could, in theory, we don't see this happen, but they could say the next day, all right, we've got a hearing opening in 80 days. We're going to give it to her because that's 75 days notice. There's also something called, I love the 75 days. I don't want that to change. I know some people want to get rid of it. I'm like, that's the time where the best work is done. I bet you the people that don't do briefs, they don't care about 75 days. They're just going to wing it anyway. I like the 75 days. You can fill out a 20-day waiver. And sometimes they automatically send it to you. And sometimes, I would say more often than not, I don't see it. I don't know why. Maybe because I would never agree to it anyway. But you can get a 20-day waiver that says they only have to give you 20 days notice. I mean, obviously you need just some notice unless you're not busy at all, right? You could have
I like to get updated records and go through everything and make sure I got my ducks.
Oh my gosh, yeah. It is time consuming. It is very time consuming. But you could do that 20-day thing, Rayford, if that's what you want. And if you have an attorney, your attorney and non-attorney rep has to agree. I would assume. I would just, if my client insisted, I'd be like, well, then I'll say, see you later. Bye-bye. Because I want to do the work I do. I want to put in that time. I want it to be the strongest case. Not doing it, for me, would be a reduced strength case. And you're not doing that to my case. Even if you would do it to yourself. You're welcome, Furry. Jenny says, I don't have my therapist session notes. Good. My therapist does. They will not be getting them. Gotcha. Good. So now, actually, that's to your benefit, right? You're thinking because maybe your therapist notes are not so great. And she doesn't have to send the psychotherapy notes. She just has to send all the other notes. Maybe SSA shouldn't have allowed an ALJ to abuse them. You can't. It's very hard to prevent someone from abusing something because we don't have prior restraint around here. I mean, that's just an American principle. But then the ALJ will be overturned if what he did amounted to an abuse, a material one. The remedy is appeal. The remedy is not to turn the ALJ into a robot where he has no choice but to award everybody that comes in the door. You know what I mean? So it's not that the SSA allowed him to deny you. The whole point of him being judicious is having his own ability to make the decision. If he fails to follow the steps he's required to follow before making it, that's when you can bang it out and appeal. You follow? And get it reversed. Yes, you have a right to protect your mental health, and you're doing that, right? I mean, you can't change the law that applies to, the due process, but if your due process has been neglected, the judge didn't do something that gives you the due process you're entitled to under the law for SSD case, that's where you win your appeal. So that's the whole gist, right? And I think you did win your remand because the judge did do something wrong. So we don't want to harp on that anymore because now you've got your remand in your back and you have an attorney who I think you said is really good, right? His for Life is in the house. Nice to see you back again. Oh, I got to start blowing through these questions, huh? It's almost the 2-hour mark. So fourth ALJ, vocational experts stated that there were jobs available. Fourth ALJ. But after lawyers' questions stated none, apply in 2018, surgery and over 7,000 pages of medical evidence, 45 years old. with college. I don't know if there's, oh, hits goes on. Hold on. College degree, chronic bilateral radiculopathy, L4, L5, proven by EKG, chronic migraines, asthma, depression, anxiety, gastritis, used a cane for mobility and support, was just diagnosed 2024 with fibromyalgia. Sleep apnea is going on, and mild cognitive impairment. CE, physical stated, unable to do sedentary work. New judge, 32% approval, cases remanded 3 times by federal. I don't really see a question in there, but I wish you the best of luck. Unless there's something you wanted to hit on there, Shanna.
That's an awful lot of medical records, someone at age. So hopefully with this next one, you'll finally get it approved. That's a lot of remands also.
Yeah. Is that your third remand? Might be your lucky 3, right? LaRocho's in the house. Hey, Stephanie. Lily's in the house. Yeah, your picture. See her picture. Thanks for your amazing lives on all things Social Security. Thanks to our guest speaker. Good to see you, LaRocha. LaRocha says, Shanna, thanks for being in the house and your added expertise. Just so you know, LaRocha, it's Shanna with an A, not Shannon, right?
Yep. I'm glad to be here.
Just to be clear. Yeah. It's been too long. Vicky Meyer says, 54 years old. I've been diagnosed with severe bilateral osteoarthritis, x-ray evidence, doctor prescription for crutches, less than sedentary, not much treatment history due to no insurance. I want to take a stab at, there's no question there.
Without the documentation, it's going to be very, very difficult.
I agree. Ick Meyer, what's with the Medicaid? Have you applied? I say this to everybody. Have you applied? Because that is for when you can't afford to buy insurance and it's not provided by an employer or whatever, or a spouse's employer. I've had so many people, Shannon, I don't know about you, but who didn't have insurance and they're like, but I'm disabled. I'm like, I get it. And I said, have you applied for Medicaid? And they're like, what's that? And they really don't even know. And I said, if you're poor enough and you're not working, so you might be, and if you don't have a wealthy spouse pulling in the bacon, yeah, go apply. You might be surprised. And then you have to use it robustly. I've had people that have gotten it and then they didn't really use it. Well, yeah. The appointment wasn't for 4 months. I'm like, that's 4 months. It was 4 months ago now. Like, you get on there and you make every appointment and you never leave a doctor's appointment without setting up the follow-up appointment. Be the squeaky wheel on your own behalf at your doctor's. And try to take all of the covered remedies they offer, like PT and all that stuff. I mean, you got to be the squeaky wheel, all these people are working very hard. Is that printer working? Their job isn't necessarily to be your counselor. Their job is to, when you make an appointment, and they're not, sorry, we got to fill the printer. They're not going to be able to know your personal situation. I just think we're expecting too much of other people whose job is to say, be a medical assistant, to then also be, being our personal counselors to get us appointments and treatment and all that. I think it's just not realistic. What do you think, Shannon?
Find ways to do it. Some offices, I don't know, their income issue, situation. Some offices offer a sliding scale. If you're out of the, financial range for Medicaid, you may qualify for that or something. Without documentation, it's just not going to be.
You have to have. I mean, I'd like to see you with MRI, Meyer, not just X-ray.
Yeah.
Are the crutches for a permanent assistive device, which is going to hurt your armpits? God, when I had to use them for a week, they were killing me. I like MRIs. And how is your back? You're 54.
Yeah.
Usually there's something in the back too, not just the. Well, you didn't say exactly where it is. Back, knees, whatever. I just think you have to make getting that treatment your full-time job.
Yeah.
Whether that's, and I've said this before, so I'll be a repeat person here. Some people do a very mild, easy, not high-paying job of, say, 8, 9, 10 hours a week. It is not inconsistent with the limitations they've claimed to get the money. So let's say it's $100 a week, $400 to pay the premium. Now they have insurance because they couldn't get Medicaid because something, whether it was they have a spouse who makes just a little too much or whatever. That's an option too if you're not completely an invalid, something that's 2 shifts a week. Just don't go over SGA, and ideally you don't go over TWP, right? But definitely don't go over SGA. But that's a way to get over it. When there's a will, there's a way. I'm always trying to think of the creative ways to.
Yeah, sometimes you have to.
Yep. Kimberly's saying, and it'll only be temporary because eventually once you win, then you get Medicare. Can I still apply for SSDI when I only have the hospital records from my stroke, which includes my CAT scan and my MRI? Would you like to?
I mean, you can apply anytime, but whether or not it's going to do any good is a different story. Because, like with a stroke, have to be able, there's like a recovery time. If did it cause any residual effects, whether walking issues, speaking issues, mental health issues, like what did it cause? That has to be documented and that kind of thing. Other than that, I mean, you can apply though, but
yeah, you can apply at any time, exactly. But I would think you would probably need more. We don't know what your vocational profile is or anything, obviously, Kimberly, but the hospital records, you eventually got out of the hospital. And if there's no evidence to show your limitations now from that stroke, at all, you could be back to normal. I mean, for all they know. So, and then SSA always prefers to see durational, ongoing, not just like, oh, I go to the doctor and he said I got left-sided weakness. All right, well, you don't need the hospital, obviously, and you have left-sided weakness. So that doesn't mean you can't do sedentary work or maybe even light work, with a cane. I mean, because that counts. Dimple in the house is sending messages 5 times a week. Is that all? LOL, guilty as charged. You're not quite that much. And I love it. I mean, this is how I make friends. I have
know that they're doing what you need them to do while you do what you need to do.
Yeah. Well, Dimple's one of them, and I love it because aside from the fact that I like some clients I know they're doing everything that makes it as strong as it can be by getting us like reporting like every visit. Like they follow what our ideal client does. Yes. And I see these people get out on initial and recon probably 4 times as much as the national average. So, and not have to go to a hearing. So I love that. It saves me hearing work. I mean, if on the selfish side, it saves me a lot of
of work.
Yeah. And I just like to see people get out sooner rather than later because I know it's really stressful, and I care about their little hearts and their stress because that kind of stuff is going to, really hurt us in the end. So I love that. And then sometimes it's just friendly stuff. So that's all cool too. And I have many a post client friend around the country now because we'll do those little chats, even when it's not, there's always the business part, but then there's nothing wrong with, and not everyone can do that because not everyone has that personality or that desire because I could be very annoying and quite the nag, right, Dimple?
Me too.
Halfpoint says, have to say your system works very well. It does. I love it. Rob the Great says, I'm receiving short-term and long-term disability payments from employer benefits. Does this impact my SSDI application? Would you like to take that, Shannon, or
I mean, essentially, no, it doesn't. I mean, I know a lot of those companies want you to pay back sometimes some of the money that they gave you during your waiting period or whatnot. But other than that, it doesn't actually affect that claim.
That's right. I've had people say I didn't file because I had a long-term disability. And I'm like, that was a huge mistake.
No bad idea.
Yeah. And let me just tell you guys, one of the consequences of not filing for SSD because you either have workers' comp or long-term disability, 2 different issues. LTD is not a problem for us at all. Workers' comp is a pain in the rear.
Can be, yeah.
It does throw some monkey wrenches, but we still take them. I'm sure Shannon does too. If you don't, and you don't go back to work in the same at all or in the same level of income as you were doing before, you will have, number one, lost your ability to file for SSD because your DLI is going to run out. And even if you go back to work a little bit, but you didn't make it an SSD related work and you didn't clinch an SSD case, your retirement, depending on your age, is how badly it's going to be decimated. Because now you have 0 years of income at 12 zeros a month, at 12 monthly zeros a year, averaged into the top 35 years of earnings. And your estimate, when you were looking at your estimate, if you ever do, for what am I going to get when I retire? Or what would I get if I got SSD? That, if you read the small print in there, it says this is based on the top 35 years with the assumption that the most recent year you worked is going to be repeated until you're 62. So if you're 50 years old and you don't continue what you made at 49, and maybe that was a high year because you've been working for, 25 years, by the time you get to retirement and you never filed for SSD, maybe you had a wealthy spouse that could afford to keep you in the style to which you become accustomed, or you're relying on the LTD. You're like, I can get by on this. Not wise, because now that estimate you had assumed that you're going to be making that $70,000 you're making for the next 12 years, and it's going to be part of that top 35 years, knocking off your bottom 18-year-old income years, which are, next to nothing. At least they were when I was 18, for me. And now you have a completely unrecognizable retirement amount because now you have 12 years of zeros that replacing what they thought was going to be 12 top years. It is, if you're like 61, 62, it's not probably a big deal. But if you're much younger than that, it's just a math. It's just a thing of math. And it's, even if you're not going to see anything, so you're not even you're going to get $50 a month in the end between the offset with SSD and LTD, do it anyway. Because that LTD, once you're of retirement age, I don't believe the LTD can have that offset. So you'll be getting both now if the LTD continues forever. And I don't know what your policy is because they're all different. But you want to protect that highest SSD amount, so you're going to get it later. Because it's no longer SSD, it's SSI. That's a fun fast fact that I share to everybody, Shannon. Because
don't wait, just apply regardless if you got money coming in.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't mean you might not wait a few months in case that's a better strategy for filing.
Yeah.
But don't blow off the SSD because of LTD.